public prosecutor in the town of Waiguya announced on the 23rd of April that 60 people were killed and that an investigation into the attack was underway. This investigation must be prompt, thorough, independent, and impartial, and it must result in credible prosecutions if such gross violations are to end. The killings come in the wake of an attack on a VDP base. These are paramilitary auxiliaries known as the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland on the 15th of April. During this attack, according to the provincial governor, 8 soldiers and 32 VDPs were killed and more than 30 injured. Credible accounts indicate that the attackers accuse village residents of sheltering members of the Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslim group, an Islamic State group affiliate, and other non-state armed groups. We call on all parties to the conflict in Burkina Faso to respect their obligations under international humanitarian law, including by refraining from targeting civilians and civilian objects. Deliberately targeting civilians or individuals not taking part in hostilities constitutes a war crime. This is one of several other reported attacks on civilians by the armed forces and the VDPs in recent months, and you'll find more information in the briefing note on this.
Thank you very much, Ravina. And again, I don't see a hands up for you. No, so thank you very much for these briefings and also for your patience. And also I would like to thank our colleague James Elder from UNICEF, who was coming with Guy Taylor. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. You are on Zoom from Maputo, and you are the UNICEF Mozambique Chief of Communication to tell us about the situation of children in Mozambique. And again, thanks for your patience. You have the floor.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so more than 28,000 cases of cholera have now been recorded in Mozambique, and this is 10 times the figure reported at the start of February. More than half of those cases are among children. The case numbers continue to increase, and this is putting children and families at ever greater risk. And now cases of malaria and diarrhea, which are the leading killers of children in Mozambique, are also on the rise. This comes at a time when children and families are still reeling from the impact of Cyclone Freddy, which destroyed more than 100 health facilities and more than 1,000 schools, disrupting the learning of almost 500,000 children. Food security presents a major risk to children in Mozambique. More than 390,000 hectares of land have been affected by Cyclone Freddy and flooding. Already across the country each year, more than 250,000 young children experience severe malnutrition, increasing their risk of death tenfold. The nature of the current emergency will certainly increase that number. Fields have been destroyed by a cyclone and floods just as the harvest is beginning. We could see 300,000 or more severely malnourished young children in Mozambique this year, many of whom are at risk of dying if they don't get treatment. Young children who've gone without food rapidly drop a lot of body weight, often exacerbated by bouts of infectious diarrhea, until they become so thin and frail that they look skeletal. It's a distressing sight, and even more distressing is the knowledge that it's excruciatingly painful for the child whose body is battling the condition. Without life-saving treatment, it's a battle that many lose. And yet there is evidence that with funds and support, results occur. In some areas of the country, cases of cholera are now stabilizing due to a strong response by government with support from UNICEF and UN partners, focusing on vaccination, prevention, treatment, water sanitation and hygiene, and awareness-raising activities. UNICEF has so far received and distributed more than 2.4 million doses of oral cholera vaccine, distributed emergency health kits with sufficient essential medicines for more than 200,000 people, and reached 500,000 people with emergency water trucking in the past 3 months. Despite such successes, and although substantial funds are coming in from partners, a funding gap of $71.6 million remains for UNICEF's response to cholera and the impacts of Cyclone Freddy and flooding. This funding would enable UNICEF to reach a total of 2.7 million children and their caregivers with direct services and support, and to address the serious challenges facing children and families in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guy. Let's see if there is, I see Gabriela Sotomayor has a question. Gabriela, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, Alessandra. I had a question on Russia, and yeah.
For UNICEF?
Well, really for you.
Oh, okay, then let's see if there's any question for UNICEF for the colleague in Mozambique. Peter Kenny.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. I was just wondering, you spoke about Cyclone Freddy and cyclones this year. Are there, and the big increase in the number of cholera cases? Is there an increase in the intensity of rains and cyclone that's causing this huge increase? What can you attribute it to? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fairly uncontroversial now to say that this is obviously the result of climate change. Mozambique is hit year after year with tropical cyclones and tropical storms. It's pretty much a very predictable seasonal occurrence now. And all reports do suggest that the intensity is also increasing. Mozambique's obviously a country which is highly vulnerable to these cyclones. It has a very long coastline of more than 2,000 kilometers. Most of the major cities located on the seaboard, with large population centers at low elevation and highly exposed to wind, rain, cyclones from the sea and flooding that comes in the wake of these cyclones. So yeah, it's something which we're very concerned about, and I think which will continue to occur, and really shows the importance of investing in resilience and resilient infrastructure. Of the more than 1,000 schools or classrooms which UNICEF has built since 2019, climate resilient classrooms, none were damaged or destroyed during Cyclone Freddy. And so it just shows the importance of that kind of investment in a country like this.
Thank you very much. I don't see other questions. So thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. Thank you for updating us on this situation, and to James. And I'd like to come now to our colleagues from FAO. We have Beate Scherf, sorry for the pronunciation, who's the FAO Animal Production Officer, and Patrizia Fracassi, FAO Senior Nutrition and Food Systems Officer, both on Zoom from Rome. I give you the floor for the latest FAO findings on the terrestrial animal source food to contribution to healthy diets.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. In October 2020, the Committee on Agriculture requested FAO to produce a comprehensive science and evidence-based global assessment on the contribution of livestock to food security, sustainable food systems, nutrition, and healthy diets, equally considering environmental, economic, and social sustainability. Today at 12:30 Rome time, FAO will be launching the first of 4 component documents of the assessment considering the benefits and risks of consuming terrestrial animal source foods. This report is based on more than 500 scientific papers and some 250 policy documents. Eggs, milk, or meat offer essential nutrients that cannot be so easily obtained from plant-based foods, and which are important during key life stages, such as pregnancy and lactation, childhood, adolescent, and older age. Let me provide some facts related to eggs. A single chicken egg provides small children with up to 64% of the daily vitamin B12 intake required for optimal growth. However, consumption varies across countries, age, gender, cultural background, and social classes. Some populations show very high intakes and others very low intakes of terrestrial animal source food, both of which lead to different forms of malnutrition. Reverting to egg consumption. While a person in Hong Kong on average consumes as much as 300 eggs per year, a person in South Sudan may not even consume 1 egg per year. Let me provide you with another set of facts. Iron and vitamin A are among the most common micronutrient deficiencies around the world. Globally, more than 1 in 2 preschool-aged children and 1.2 billion women of childbearing age suffer from the lack of at least 1 of 3 micronutrients, iron, vitamin A, or zinc. 3/4 of these children live in South and East Asia, the Pacific, and Sub-Saharan Africa. At the same time, 1/3 of the global foodborne disease burden is associated with the consumption of terrestrial animal source food, emphasizing the need for a One Health approach. The world is facing climate change, biodiversity loss, and degradation of land and natural resources. The livestock sector both contributes to and is affected by those challenges. Future component documents will guide the changes that must be made. They will look at supply and demand factors, the livestock sector's contribution to sustainable agri-food systems, and options for making the livestock sector more sustainable. To take full advantage of the benefits of terrestrial animal source food outlined in this report, we must transform the livestock sector and wider agri-food systems. As we pursue this transformation, we must manage trade-offs between different goals to enable the livestock sector to contribute to ending hunger, poverty, and malnutrition, and reduce its impact on the environment. I would like to invite the media to raise public awareness on the importance of terrestrial animal source food contributing to healthy diets, particularly in populations that show very low intakes and key life stages such as pregnancy and lactation, childhood, adolescent, and older age. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this update. And I see that Key has put the link to the findings into the chat if you want to have a look at that. Is there any question for FAO? I don't see any. So thank you very much. And thanks for your patience to follow this very long briefing before you were given the floor. So now we have a couple of further announcements, one from Christian. Christian, are you still there? You are. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And today is World Malaria Day, and we normally wanted to give you a briefing on this today as we normally do. But looking at the big agenda today, maybe it was actually useful that our experts were unfortunately not available today. So just a few notes from me quickly, and then of course our experts are available for anything further on malaria or the World Malaria Day. You should also expect a press release a little bit later today. Marking World Malaria Day, the World Health Organization is issuing a call for increased implementation of new and existing interventions to save lives from malaria. Nearly 1.5 million children at high risk of illness and death from malaria in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi have now received their first dose of the first malaria vaccine, RTSS, thanks to an ongoing pilot program coordinated by WHO. The malaria vaccine pilots launched in 2019 are increasing equity in access to malaria prevention for the most vulnerable and saving lives. If implemented broadly, WHO estimates that malaria vaccines could save the lives of tens of thousands of children each year. World Malaria Day 2023 is being marked under the theme Time to Deliver Zero Malaria, Invest, Innovate, Implement. Within this theme, WHO is urging more effective implementation of available tools and strategies to prevent, diagnose, and treat malaria, particularly among marginalized populations. According to the latest World Malaria Report, published in December 2022, there were an estimated 247 million new cases of malaria in 2021. The WHO African region continues to shoulder the heaviest burden of the disease, accounting for an estimated 95% of all malaria cases and 96% of all deaths in 2021 alone. Nearly 80% of malaria deaths in the African region were among children under the age of 5. I'll leave it at that. More to come today. Thank you.
Terrible figure. Thank you very much, Christian. I don't see questions for you. Yes, Gabriela.
I'm sorry, Alexandra. It's for you again.
It's again for me. No, okay. Sorry. Let's finish with all the speakers, please, Gabriela.
Yeah.
Just
Okay,
a
at the
little
end.
bit of
Okay,
patience.
at the end.
No, we still have Fernando, and I see he has just opened his video camera. Fernando, you have a couple of announcements also for the journalists. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Alessandra. I'll be very brief. To start with, we want to invite journalists to attend Making Trade Score for Women. This is an event that will take place Monday next week from 10:30 in the morning at the WTO. It's an event that is jointly organized by the WTO and FIFA, and in association with the permanent missions of Australia and New Zealand, who are representing the two hosting countries of the 2023 Women's Football World Cup. The event will be inaugurated by WTO Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and FIFA President Gianni Infantino. Football legends Ania Mittag of Germany and Didier Drogba of Côte d'Ivoire will attend the event in person, and we are also expecting 8 players of Servette women's team that will participate in the World Cup with their respective national teams. The event will focus on empowering women through football and trade, and also on exploring innovative approaches to help women connect to sports apparel value chains. And the second event will be the next day on Tuesday and at 10:30, also in the WTO, a new edition of the presidential lectures that will take place this time featuring Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi, the president of Botswana. The president of Botswana will speak about what Africa expects from the multilateral trading system and how the organization can best support delivering meaningful impact for the continent. Both events will be held in person at the WTO, and as usual, UN and WTO badges will grant entry of journalists to the building if they want to attend. Thank you.
Fernando, thank you. So there is a question in the chat. So the first one you mentioned, Making Trade Score for Women, is on Monday, 1st of May. No, you're muted.
That is correct. Monday at 10:30 in the morning.
Thank you. And I saw a question that from Peter, but the hand went down. So I think he didn't, it's okay. So thank you very much for these updates. Gabriela, ask your question, and then I will read you my final announcements, and then we will go to lunch because it's almost time. Gabriela.
Yes, thank you, Alessandra. Sorry, but yesterday Mr. Lavrov was in New York with Mr. Guterres and in the Security Council Assembly. But we heard what Mr. Guterres said, but I want to know if he had a bilateral meeting with Mr. Lavrov, and if there is any glimpse of hope for peace. What do you think?
Yeah, not only there was a bilateral meeting with the Secretary General, but we also sent you the readout yesterday. So this is a quite comprehensive readout, Gabriela. It's quite long. If we were not so late, I would read it to you. But they discussed, of course, the war in Ukraine, the situation in Afghanistan and Syria. They spoke about the Black Sea Grain Initiative, the Memorandum of Understanding with the Russian Federation. And this is all detailed in the readout that I personally sent to you yesterday night. So I know you have got it. So, and if you haven't, please ask. That's quite detailed answer to your question. I'm just left with reminding you that the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination is ending the 109th session on Friday. The Committee Against Torture is going to begin tomorrow, the review of the report of Luxembourg. You have an OHCHR press conference on the 28th of April at 1:30. This is on the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination findings. As you know, this year they have looked at this session. They have looked at Argentina, Niger, Philippines, Portugal, Russian Federation, and Tajikistan. And then on the 1st of May, that as you all know, I mean, just as a reminder, the Palais is not closed. We don't celebrate the 1st of May as an official holiday. So you will be able to participate in the press conference at 12 noon, given by the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm conventions. On the opening of the 16th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Basel Convention, 11th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Rotterdam Convention, and the 11th meeting on the Conference of the Party to the Stockholm Convention, with the Executive Secretary of the Convention, Rolf Payet, and other speakers. So this is what I had left to read to you. I'm just looking, there is a chat. Yeah, that was Gabriel's question. We have answered it. So if there are no other questions for me, I'll thank you all very much for following this very long briefing. Bon appetit, and I'll see you on Friday. Thank you.
Recording stopped.